really big.
And there are plenty of big names left in, but it's going to be really hard to stay across this entire field with as many players still in. As it narrows, as we get close to the money, and I should point out, by the way, that there's every possibility that we bring you world-famous bubble coverage here on day 2, because they're going to play 5 levels today. And by my calculations, when we get to level 14, level 15 towards the end of the day, I reckon we're going to be pretty close, if not at the point where we go hand for hand.
Oh boy.
Is straddle or raise? Oh, you raise. I thought straddle.
So this is a raise from Andre Akari and Tarek with a call with the
It's a
2
new
8s.
thing for poker. Yeah, speed the game, more action, no? Live straddle.
Will Kassouf, I don't believe involved in the hand, but talking nonetheless.
Not involved in speaking about ways to speed up the game. I mean, I can think of one way.
Me, don't talk.
Correct. I'm just kidding. I like a talker. I'm not sure I like Will, but I like a talker.
Well, just very quickly, those of you who are watching our coverage from Monte Carlo and will remember we had the shot clock in play in the main event. Here in Barcelona, the shot clock will be introduced, but not until we are 1 table off the money.
I think that's a really good idea, especially in a field this size, is that you don't want, obviously we go hand for hand around the bubble and things, but you don't want that stall to come in super early. People start seeing the money coming up and they slow right down. So I think shot clock, it's a smart introduction there. That's a bet from Andre Akari and a call from Tarek. Not a particularly fun turn for Akari to continue his aggression, but as the under-the-gun raiser, he still has all of the big pairs in his range. And Tarek not re-raising pre-flop, so he's going to have a lot of hands like pocket 8s, pocket 9s, maybe some jack 10 suiteds, 10-9 suiteds. But Akari, obviously, he can't just relentlessly barrel into him because he can also have probably pocket 10s, pocket 7s, pocket 5s, plenty to continue with. Akari does opt for the more aggressive option. A bet on the turn.
Attaboy Ali. Get bullied off those 8s. King on the river.
Might be a river that Akari wants to fire again. If he feels that Tarek is getting particularly stubborn, even with something like a 10, he's not going to be happy facing 3 streets from an under-the-gun raise. And hands like King-Queen that barreled now improve. If he was getting a little bit out of line with the Ace-King, it's improved and will look for value. Akari does seem interested in putting chips in the middle.
Let's talk about this from the 8s perspective. Can you just call here every single time? Oh, he's not going to have to.
Easy showdown now. It's very difficult. It really depends how often you think your opponent is getting out of line. But as I said, he's going to have a lot of very strong hands from under the gun. So you don't want to get too cally in those spots because people don't open that wide of a range under the gun. So typically they're just going to have it a lot.
So blinds currently 800, 1600. A reminder, we are playing with the big blind ante, which is also 1600. William Kassouf folding under the gun. Round to Benny Spindler, who has King Jack suited.
This is a hand he's going to want to get involved with.
No calls, no comments. That's the rule, right?
And Will Kassouf would like to get involved as well.
Cheers.
So it's a raise to 3,400. And Felipe Salgado has pocket 4s in the cutoff. He's going to flat. Round to Ali Tariq in the big. Queen 4 of hearts. He passes. Looks like we're going heads up to the flop.
And one of the 4's gone. He won't know it. But Salgado's chance of flopping a set significantly diminished.
Yeah, who cares?
I'll just do it anyway.
Oh man, what a flop.
Unbelievable. The set of 4s for Salgado and flush and straight draws for Benny Spindler. And it's almost a flip. 43% equity for Spindler, who is currently behind. And with that kind of board, Spraggy, my question was going to be is how fast should Salgado play this?
Very quickly. I would imagine it's a board where he's going to want to raise some of his draws. When you have a hand like pocket fours and your opponent just has so many hands they can continue with, it's a case of building the pot as quickly as possible. Because even if Benny Spindler has a king-queen, he's probably going nowhere. And what you don't want is, let's say against a king-queen, you don't want the 9 of diamonds to fall or the ace of diamonds. There's so many action killers as well. So I would imagine we see a raise from Salgado.
For Lebanese, anyway, yeah.
Spindler's C-bet is 5,000.
But your parents just happen to be in Africa? Or
Yeah, my dad went 40 years ago.
Salgado.
5 years ago, started his businesses, and I'm taking over now.
Okay, okay. So your parents still there?
Half the year.
Yeah.
Yeah, going on.
Has raised it up, made it 14,500.
My town, they're all in Africa.
And if
I
you're
hear
Benny
Lebanese
Spindler at
in
this
London,
point,
I hear
you
in
just have so
Melbourne,
much
yeah.
equity, it's very hard for you to make mistakes.
I never used to hear that.
So we could
Nigeria.
easily see him move all in, try and get it in against maybe a dominating draw, or a dominated draw, should I say.
So
or
what's
even if he has to run it against Queen Jack, Queen 10.
know
Like,
the Lebanese
against the
approach.
set, he's 43%.
Yeah,
It's very hard for him to do anything incorrectly here.
Who's the biggest
So
player?
even just calling
The hell?
is
Alberto
not
Martinez
incorrect?
right now.
Joe Mawad?
Good players.
Calling might be fine. The danger is on brick turns, and let's say your opponent raises 6, 7 of diamonds, and then bets turn, your equity position is diminished. You have to just call again, and maybe if he fires river, you fold.
Yeah.
So we might just see him fire it in here.
Top
Yeah, I
pro
guess
or
so.
less.
Even though they might
Smaller
pretend they don't.
Yeah, like smaller community.
Yeah.
You recognize each other's face and then, yeah. Yeah, I played with that this year.
Does
in,
decide
Venetian
just to call.
In Venetian and Vegas. Venetian tournament, yeah.
Taking us
I
to
had
the
some fun.
turn, which
Speaking
is
of
the
it, laughing, joking.
King of
Really
Hearts.
heavy
So
last
Benny
time.
now with top pair to go with all those draws.
Not really the way you want to
Yeah,
improve.
enjoy it and then live
Salgado improves to a
Sit there saying
2-1
nothing,
favourite
and
with
get
his set
angry
of
if you're
fours.
upset. You're talking, why?
It's 5 minutes per decision. There's no fun in it anymore.
Exactly.
That's why you're good for the game.
The hoodies, the headphones, everything, tanking 5 minutes, saying nothing. Yeah, it's bad. That's what's bad for poker, you know?
It should be a spot Salgado's very happy with, because his opponent's, you know, going to improve to a lot of 2-pair combinations, king queens and king 10s. Not too worried about the ace jack. Obviously, jack 9 of diamonds, ace jack of diamonds would continue on the flop.
You don't have to say anything funny, just hello, how are you?
Would imagine he's looking to build value on the pot, as well as get value from hands like king jack that are going to call again. Ace queen probably not going anywhere just yet.
So what kind of bet sizing do you go for when you've got, there it is, you
Big.
go all in?
Yeah.
You put Benny all in, excuse me.
Yeah, Salgado betting enough to force Benny to call off his remaining 50k.
Yeah, he had about a pot-sized bet left, right? So
Yeah,
definitely a good
Benny had
spot
just
to put it in the
over
middle.
pot.
Is this the point where Benny regrets not shoving flop?
Kind of, because as Joe said, it's not really the way you want to improve. You hit your king, which gives you potentially a few more outs if you're, you know, up against, not really against any hands that are going to play this way, though.
Right.
I mean, you get there against queen, or you have more outs against queen 10, but that's really about it. He probably just has too much equity to fold in general. I mean, he has to call almost a pot-sized bet, right? Which means you need 33% equity to call a pot-sized bet. So even if he sees the fours, you know, he's getting the right price to call. Now, obviously, there are considerations when you're in a tournament that, you know, your tournament life's on the line as well. So even though it's a quote-unquote profitable call, like you might not want to put it all in with 33%. I mean, it's going to be very hard for him to get away.
A reminder, shot clock not in play until later today when we get one table off the money.
The problem for Benny Spindler is trying to find hands his opponent would bluff with. Now, it is possible that sometimes Salgado from the cutoff has a suited ace that plays this way. Let's say it's like ace 9 of diamonds that raises flop and then shoves turn. He's improved against a hand like that. But he has to be confident, I guess, that Salgado is capable of not only raising the flop, but also jamming the turn. Or let's say Salgado has, I mean, it's hard for him to have something like Jack 8 of diamonds because he called in the cutoff. That would be a little bit loose. Jack 9 of diamonds got there. Ace Jack of diamonds got there. And Benny Spindler has the Jack of diamonds in his hand, so that's also impossible, Joe.
2 minutes in the tank.
But other ace jacks got there
Right?
that don't contain the jack of diamonds.
If he's bluffing with Jack 9 of spades, he got there, right?
Wow, close to 3 minutes now. All into call for Benny Spindler. Clearly hating the spot and clearly regretting the line he took on the flop.
It really is a gross spot to have a hand where you
Sorry, guys.
are pretty sure that you're beat, but you kind of have to call anyway. Like, that's awful.
As some 41 once said, he might be in too deep. It might just be time that you have a lot in the middle. You have, even if you're behind, you have a very good chance to improve.
It's a very long Sum 41 lyric.
Oh no, yeah, it was
Just the, which part did the lyric end?
in too deep. That was the end of
Oh,
the
I
Sum
see.
41
Okay.
reference.
Got it.
Sorry, yeah.
And just to clarify, registration is now closed. So this event did have single re-entry, but you had to use that either on day 1A, day 1B, or before play started on day 2. Now when you're eliminated, that's it. It's over.
Which is why Benny Spindler is nearly 4 minutes into the tank.
4 minutes into the tank.
Shrug of the shoulders.
I call.
There it is.
Benny calls all in, and he is at risk of elimination here, and he is behind 33% equity, looking to improve to a straight or a flush on the river. Otherwise, we lose one of the 20 former EPT champions who began day 2 here in Barcelona.
He'll be sad to see his king and his jack not live. He would have liked to be up against the queen 10, but it is the pocket 4s. 2 pair or trips won't be good.
The river is the ace of diamonds, gets there both ways. Benny Spindler gets the double up and will now be the second biggest stack at our feature table. 86 big blinds. Bad news for EPT Barcelona
They say
main
it's,
events.
you make poker fun, you know? That's how it should be, you know? Poker should be fun, you know? Doesn't matter what stakes you play, $100 or 10,000, it's like, enjoy it. It's like poker, you know? But some people, they get annoyed and frustrated. Too much talking on the table, they don't like it. They go on tilt, for what?
I love it.
Yeah. It's a social game.
It's good for the game.
They want to put the headphones with you, they say nothing, and they get angry when somebody's talking.
Come on. Okay?
Come on.
So Andre opens under the gun with ace-5 suited, called by Ali Tariq with ace-deuce suited.
A little bit wide. Certainly a hand you could 3-bet versus an under the gun open. I think most players would prefer that to calling, but ace-deuce can make the nuts in many, many ways. I'm talking ace-ace-ace, deuce-deuce-deuce, 3 clubs, 3-4-5. That's at least 4 different ways.
3-4-5
Isn't the nuts.
isn't quite the nuts, but we get your point.
You're happy with it.
So queens for Benny Spindler in the hijack.
Then, of course, there's this situation where you call and have to fold almost always.
Yeah. And a pretty sick situation where Benny Spindler's been so active today, but now actually has a super strong hand that we're going to expect him to put in a raise with.
Andre Kari, Brazilian pro, in the pocket, he raised.
Does indeed a 3-bet to 14,500. Back on Akari, who has that suited ace. He will be out of position to Benny Spindler though, post-flop. So not particularly incentivized to call. And that's Tariq's slightly wider call punished as well. Or is it?
What?
Oh, he calls. I mean, I guess he's the table chip leader. He's the only person who can really afford to play multi-street against Benny Spindler. I'm
Keep going. You'll get there.
not sure you can really justify it, but anyway, it's a King Jack Jack board.
The problem with calling your ace deuce is you hit an ace and there's a lot of action, you can't face it, you're going to be up against ace queens and ace kings. And obviously making a pair of deuces is no fun, so you're really only playing to make clubs, which isn't going to happen, I would imagine, enough of the time for him to really want to call here. A bit of an awkward spot for Benny Spindler, though. Now, you don't necessarily have to hit cards to win. So maybe Tariq has a plan for post-flop. Wouldn't be surprised to see Benny Spindler play a bit of pot control here.
I mean, you don't really love this flop, do you?
No, not at all. And it's very hard to get value from any worse hands other than some spade combinations, because you can't value bet against a king or a jack, and you block hands like queen 10 since you have two of the queens.
So Benny did indeed check behind. 8 of spades on the turn. Only Tariq now drawing to 2 outs, the 2 remaining aces in the deck. Only got 5% equity. Benny obviously unaware how big a favor he is here.
Spraggy, do you ever think to yourself here, the mathematical odds of me having ace deuce of spades here is the exact same as me having ace deuce of clubs, so why not just pretend like I have ace deuce of spades?
The problem is, let's say he defends every ace deuce suited. That's 4 ace deuce suited, right? So
Yeah.
if he bets every time he has ace deuce suited, then 1 out of 4 times he has a flush, 3 out of 4 times he's bluffing.
So even if,
So if he bets every time he has ace deuce, just pretending he has ace deuce of spades, he has more bluffs than he does for value, and his opponent can call down against him more.
so don't pretend.
No.
Okay.
It's very easy to slip into the realm of over bluffing, just bluffing everything. I'm just going to pretend I have a flush every time.
Yeah.
Things like this. And that's when you start bleeding chips, because if your opponents realize it, which a good player like Benny Spindler will, they'll just call, and you know, you're out 30, 40K or whatever.
But you also can't expect to make the best hand with ace deuce.
Enough of the time,
Right.
right? Which is why you should probably just fold pre, because it's super hard to make hands. Then you get into weird post-flop spots where you end up bluffing with it too much, and you start bleeding chips unnecessarily.
And that, my friends, is what we call leading a horse to water and making him drink.
And here he comes, looking like a river bet. And I think once this is checked down twice, Benny Spindler will just be making the call.
Yeah, after it went check, check on the turn. 17,500 into a pot of 36,500. By the way, we're more than halfway through the first level of the day. Around 40 minutes left to play before the first break on day 2.
Benny Spindler just taking a moment. I think if he knew how wide Tarek was peeling pre-flop, he'd have already called. Because if Tarek is bluffing ace-deuce, he's going to have maybe hands like 9-10 suited, which can bluff. Plenty of other combinations as well. You know, it could be bluffing with ace-3, ace-5. Once you add all those in, he just has to call queens. And the fact that he's checked down twice. His hand's kind of under-repped. In that he's going to get here with just some ace-highs that will fold. But queens might well be the strongest hand that he checks behind 2 times.
Wonder if Tariq even knows how strong a hand he just bet into.
I think Tariq, I guess it's just, wow.
Wow. We are
Good
wrong,
luck, good for the game.
and we're terrible, and we don't know anything.
That is a fairly tight fold. I don't think he gets to the river with...
That I wouldn't say pressure, but added benefit and joy. If they end up winning like $4 or $5 million, a couple $1 million makes a huge difference for a cause that they genuinely care about.
I think it's also good to go into the event knowing how much of it you're going to be giving away. Like, 'cause sometimes I play a charity event, right? And I'm like, oh man, if I win this, What do I have to give this charity? Like, do I have to give it all? Do I give it anything? And at least if you decide ahead of time, it's 50-50. You don't have to go through that struggle
I mean, they could if
later
they're-
on.
They
Or they could give more, right?
give more, sure.
Martinez opening with King Jack of diamonds.
But I really love that every one of the team pros and stuff is coming up with unique ways, and you guys are going to have an opportunity to give away too on your podcast. It's really been fun. It's been like a whole year of preparation for an event that should be pretty epic in terms of like, you know, the field size, the pop and circumstance surrounding it.
I've been very lucky that I've been able to be the person literally handing them over on a lot of these events that we do, and that is very fun. I really enjoy it.
So Alphonse 3-betting from the big blind with queens. Martinez is the table chip leader. In fact, these are the two biggest stacks at the table, so he may call in position here.
Well, he's going to call. Yeah, absolutely. This is exactly the right kind of hand to be calling in position with, like any sort of suited Broadway hand. It's a must call for that sizing.
And it's a king high flop. Of course it is.
Yeah. So here with the queens, again, you know, I'm going to ask Stapes, how often would you be betting this flop?
A little more than half the time.
Yeah, interesting. I think I bet less. I think I'm going to bet this flop a lot less often. But
A little less than
what's
half
correct.
the time.
I'm not sure what's correct, but you know, that board. Even though, you know, so the king is there, that's not good. The 8-9 is also there. This kind of really smashes the calling range for your opponent. So you bet this flop, and you know you get called. Now what? You know, you can open up yourself to get outplayed if on the turn and river. So I
Ask
think I
your
like a
opponent
check.
really, really nicely to get to showdown.
Yeah. No, that's a really bad card for the queens because it makes it less likely. There's less combinations of a king Martinez could have, so I would imagine Alphonse is going to have to check call a bet here on the turn, and you got to expect Martinez to bet. Question is, with 60,000 out there, what is the secret sauce number? Something like 20 or something like 35?
Secret
35.
sauce.
Well, no, I think because you have the king, I don't know. I'm thinking like, oh, he
I was
checked.
going to say, can't you check?
Wow. I guess you could check. Alphonse is going to value bet his queens now. So I don't know about this value bet.
I just feel like when you, your hand is a little more face up when you don't see bet the
I don't
flop.
like this value bet on the river because what are you getting called by? If your opponent had an 8, they're not calling anymore because they're counterfeited. If your opponent has a 9, they have a full house. If they have a king, they have a full house. If they have jack 10, they're not calling you. If they have queen jack, they're not calling you. Ace high, maybe? That's like really, really, really thin. So overall, I don't think that Alphonse's bet here is a good idea. It's going to get raised, and now he's going to put himself in a tough spot. I think he just has to fold. I mean, looks like he's cutting out 65,000. It's a good meaty raise size. So Martinez, now Alphonse has to ask himself, would he raise me with a 9? Probably not, right? He's not going to raise with a 9 because I could have a king. So the only hand that he could have here is a king. So he'd have to believe now that he checked back a king on the turn. Well, what combos of kings call pre-flop? King, queen is one. Problem is I got 2 queens and there's 2 kings out there. That doesn't leave a whole lot. So king, jack, maybe thinks ace, king raises pre-flop. Really difficult decision now because of the way that Martinez actually played this hand by checking the turn. This raise on the river has to, oh, he's going to call it. Yep. Turned out to be a really good check from Martinez on the turn, setting the trap. Alphonse stepping right in with the lead on the river, which I did not like. And then, you know, calling the raise is just, whew, I don't know. I don't think you beat enough bluffs there.
Well, Alphonse has just dropped below the 50 big blind mark. Meanwhile, Raul Martinez has moved over 200.
So because he
But
had
it's king queen way more often than king jack.
well,
and it's going to be
so a raise
king
on the
10,
river.
least
When you're
amount.
raising, if we didn't see the whole cards, we'd think the raise on the river was king queen a lot of the time. But because you have 2 queens and there's 2 kings on board, it lessens the number of combinations that there are of that hand. You got me?
Right.
Yeah. So he did have the best kind of like bluff catching hand, but again, I don't think that he should have led that.
Right.
river.
My point is that if he's got like 10s or whatever, and he's blocking king 10, he's the
Well,
other
if
guy.
he had 10s, that's a very bad hand to call
Right.
with because it blocks the 10 jack, which is the straight draw
Also
kind of
the
hands that
10
he could have
jack.
had.
So there's a Spindler versus Banfi. A straight draw for Spindler. Banfi ahead for now with king high.
Well, the standard play for Spindler here is to check call. It's never a fold. So either a check call or sometimes, I don't really like the check raise with 2 hearts on the board very often. I think check call is just so much the best play, it's not close. In fact, yeah, I think it's the only play. Now here's an interesting card. See, this is an interesting spot where, you know, guys like, I've seen a lot of players like Fedor or whatnot lead at the 9. Just bet out at the 9 with a small bet. You know, potentially set something up for the river. It's a bad card for Spindler's range when he check calls his flop. For Banfi, it's a good one. That card might actually keep Spindler from bluffing the river. I think he probably had a plan to bet a lot of river cards, maybe not the ace. Because now, for him to bet this ace, he's representing some sort of ace that floated the flop or a 9. That's it. Or better, of course, like some sort of full house hand. And Spindler doesn't go for the bluff on the river.
Is that kind of why you brought up leading small at the turn there, so that you can...
Well, I think it puts opponents in tough spots. So when you lead that turn card, right? Sure, you could be doing that with draws. You could be doing that with air. But you could also have David Gray, who some of you may know, who he plays all types of games and mixed games. And whatever the person shows at the river, it's unbelievable. Like, if someone shows 3 kings, he's like, nice. He gets 3 kings. I have 3 queens. It's like, oh, 3 kings with a 3 kings with a jack. Nice. I get 3 kings with a 10. He has exactly the undernuts every single time. I've never seen anything like it. Something makes me. I actually think he may be actually lying. He may be fibbing.
You think so?
Yep, I think so. I just think it's impossible.
As you know, I play very little poker, but I almost always say especially if I played the hand horribly, I will always say I've just been pipped.
Right. So someone chose a jack high flush. You're like, great, I have a 10 high flush.
10, I was like, how do I have?
What
a
do you
worse
have? Kings
flush?
with an ace? Kings.
Yeah.
Oh, kings with a
I just
queen.
go, how do I have a worse flush here? And then I muck.
Yeah. 9s and 6s is great. Of 9s and 5s.
9s is unbelievable.
Wow. Cooler.
All those things in the first orbit, and then you're out.
Yeah.
King, queen suited for Alphonse. He's raised from the cutoff. Benny Spindler on the button with pocket 10s. And Spindler has re-raised. It's a 3-bet to 17,500.
So this is an interesting spot now. Alphonse has, like, it's just too good a hand to just lay down to a 3-bet. You know, the question is, does he ever want to get frisky and, you know, because Spindler is an aggressive player, we all know that. Does he want to just, you know, stick it in his face before the flop? But he's got a really good hand to see a flop with. Spindler, of course, has a legit 3-betting hand, so we're in a race situation. Of course, an ace flops.
Couple of backdoors for Alphonse. Over to Spindler's 10s. Action check to Benny.
So the benefits of sticking it in his face pre-flop is that, what, you get hands with decent equity against you to fold sometimes?
Sure. So basically, when Spindler has position and he's a tough player, you know, he can have a lot of hands that, you know, are either slightly ahead of you or behind you, but if you don't hit your flop, it's going to be very difficult for you to win the pot. So one of the ways to neutralize a better player's advantage is to just go all in before the flop and force them to just, you know, become robotic and say, you know, call or fold.
So the main reason you're doing it is so that you don't have to play post-flop against a good player.
Partly because the hand is pretty good, you know. But again, it's like out of position against a really good player. You may not be able to realize full equity because...
You'd never be happy if you get called, though, right?
No. I mean, but again, you're going to get called sometimes by jacks or 10s and be okay. You don't want to get called by specifically aces, kings, queens, or ace-king. But, you know, you do have a king and a queen, so it makes it slightly less likely that he has that. Spindler firing 14K. Has been called. This is a weird way to play king queen. Very strange to just, you know, check flop, check call turn, thinking it's good, or I'm not sure about this one. I think if I was Alphonse and I wanted to continue, I might check raise that 14K and make it like 35 and be done with it. Spindler cannot bet this river. There's just no planet where that happens, I don't think. Unless Spindler thinks he's up against jacks or queens and thinks he has to. to turn his hand to a bluff. That's what I think Spindler's thinking about. I'd be surprised to see him bet here.
I mean, you have to think you're up against jacks or queens, and then also think that you can get jacks or queens to fold.
Exactly. And, you know, I don't know how much, you know, he knows about his opponent. Yeah, he checks it back. That's the play. King, queen. It's well played by Benny there. I mean, I think Alphonse, again, like I said, it's hard to outplay your opponent, a good player like Benny Spindler with king, queen, and you found yourself kind of guessing.
Yeah, you got to make a hand. You're not going to. Well, Benny did make a pretty big incorrect laydown to an.
Do you have a dog, James?
I don't. I did have a cat a few years ago.
You seem like a cat person.
Oh, 100%.
He is. He's definitely
because you know cats don't actually need tender love and care. They're like
He's
they do
definitely
their own thing.
A cat
They're low
lady
maintenance.
for sure.
No, they do need tender love and care, and then they bite you for it.
Yeah.
And that's why I love cats. Spindler versus Tariq. King, queen against aces.
This is a spot where Spindler doesn't want to hit any piece. And he's lucky he didn't. So how much would you bet here with your aces? Stapes?
I would bet 13,000.
Okay. I'd go with 8.
8,000.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Hey, the point is we both said less than half the pot, and
We
that's
did.
really
We're
all
very
that
close.
matters.
Looks like he's going to take your advice and bet 12-5. Yeah, it's a great spot to have a guy float. You want him to float. Try to outplay you.
I mean, you're not even worried about him having a draw. It's beautiful.
And Spindler is the right kind of opponent to have that line of thinking because he's capable. We all know that. Of being very creative in position. Both play. All right, good fold. Yeah, I totally whiffed the flop. Thought about getting a little kooky crazy, and was like, nah, never mind.
That she'd pay for everything except he would pay when they go to Subway, but he would complain if she ordered avocado.
I don't remember if I got it from you. I think I've heard it. Maybe it was from you, but I also... No, I know who it was from. It's a married couple that I know.
Okay.
And he actually would be annoyed because they'd go to dinner, and she wanted extra avocado, and it was like $3.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, you know, ease off on the avocado. Like, and then I was like, yeah, that's pretty nitty, bro.
And I hopefully these are not people who are strapped for cash.
No, they're not. Yeah, I mean, one was a school teacher, the other was a personal trainer. So they had enough, you know.
They could afford $3.
Yeah,
for
they ended up
avocado.
getting divorced. I don't think it was because
Right.
of the avocado.
Well, it's not a
but
$3 thing.
I think, yeah, it wasn't the avocado that did it, but...
Sevens against deuces. Ali Tariq still ahead. Circa, having raised pre, continues. Now just has 5% equity.
See? Look, I just proved that I was trying to do an Instagram story of Stapes telling that story. I clicked on Instagram. I did all the freaking stuff, and I put it over there.
Yeah.
I pressed through, and then it crashed my phone. Maybe because of the internet. So here, I had all the cool,
Right.
you know, at Instastapes, all that stuff, and then,
Do you routinely close down your apps?
yeah,
Okay.
there we go. So that's Instastapes.
How full is your drive?
Oh, I don't know. What do you mean my drive?
Like your space on your phone. I feel like if it's near full.
Sorry, is this a poker tournament or a Genius bar?
If it was a Genius bar, Daniel would have to wait 2 weeks for me to answer that question.
Okay, so now I want to
Yeah.
click your story or send to, whatever.
Yeah.
Crash.
Bye-bye.
Okay, sorry people. It's a good bit, but it's not making the stories anymore.
I think you might have too much stuff.
Sweater.
I think it might have been less than that.
Undeterred, he'll come in again for a raise with the ace and the queen. Goldberg, who's next?
Well, literally Sergio Veloso is next, but he folds. Ooh.
I think we're going to see some Lynn Mormon action again. Lynn with the jacks in the small blind will be out of position. Most likely play here to go for another raise. They start the hand just over 40 big blinds deep, effectively. Chen Lin with 237,000 chips, around 80 big blinds. Chris Mormon around the 130,000 chip mark. And almost certainly going nowhere. Calls, and we'll take a flop. Pretty reasonable decision in position. Not a hand that's going to do well if you 4-bet, 5-bet, start getting it in.
Start getting it, Lynn.
And Lynn does flop the overpair, 10 high board. Not particularly connected. Chris Mormon unable to pair his ace-queen. And not even, you know, like if he has 2 diamonds on the flop, he's a little bit more excited with the ace of diamonds in his hand, but only 1. Of course, 3-betting from the small blind. You're going to see some lighter hands, but he is 3-betting versus an under-the-gun +1 open, so it's not like a small blind versus button dynamic. Lynn going to be fairly strong here most of the time. And Mormon realizes it, and he'll just fold to the continuation bet. Lynn continues to chip up.
Yeah, coming on strong.
Kind of obvious. John Juanda, of course, never really going to defend it with the Jack-10 offsuit anyway. But he might make a few more folds than he normally would.
John Juanda is capable of some ridiculous folds. Man, what was that hand between him and Steve Warburton? Where one of them made some kind of insane fold on a final table bubble. Yeah, John Juanda folded kings. So, you know, in a situation like that where, let's say John Juanda had a hand like ace-queen or ace-jack there.
Like 9s, you know,
Or
even
nines.
like 8s, which is an auto call to the shove.
Right, so if you just put out a little 3-bet there that looks super strong, you can maybe get a, maybe it's a little spidey sense for him.
Yeah, I mean, if he's capable of those, you know, folding kings in those spots, he might have that feeling just to let something go that he'd ordinarily call with. It's Scorpion, not Sub-Zero. That's why I was thrown off.
Well, I was referencing both of them because they're essentially the same character.
I knew that. I was just making sure that you knew. I was just
You
asking.
know, wearing different colored clothing.
Yeah.
One of them speaks and the other one doesn't, but.
Okay.
3 ways of this flop. King 9-7. Veloso was the raiser.
And flop some reasonable equity here. Gut shot straight draw. Might be a board that he wants to bet. Especially given Moad in the big blind has already demonstrated a little bit of a propensity to call pretty wide. We saw him with King 6 off in the small blind, so he can expect Moad to be making plenty of folds. Davis would be, I guess, more of a concern. Calling in the cutoff, this is going to hit his range pretty well. Of course, this time with the ace-4 suited, it doesn't, but he's going to have a lot of those, you know, 9-10s and jack-10s and king-queens, king-jack suiteds. But the continuation bet from Veloso will see Davies fold, and it is Moad who continues with his 9.
I've really upset Twitch chat by saying they're essentially the same. I meant underneath, like we're all essentially the same. We're just people. I don't mean that they have like the same abilities within the game. I just meant, aren't they like the same guy under there? Aren't they twins?
Veloso improves to the best hand on the turn. He pairs his jack now. Every chance we see him opt for some pot control. No longer a hand that he'd be looking for 3 streets of value. So he can afford to check back, especially given that he saw Moad bet the king 6, right? So if he's going to bet some of those weird pairs at the river, then Veloso can check back his jack and make some calls. This makes things a little bit more awkward. A check from Moad. And Veloso probably pretty happy just to show down what's going to be the winning hand a lot of the time. Doesn't need to bluff.
9.
Not this time. Nice turn. Hey, Sergio, nice turn. Go, get involved. Get involved, Christopher Waffen.
As we tick over to 312 remaining in the field here at EPT Barcelona. John Juanda with the ace-jack suited. He'll try again. Very frustrating hand for him last time out. Chen Lin rivering that ace to scoop a not insignificant pot. I don't think either player did anything too wrong. Calling twice with a 3, not so bad. You're going to get barreled when you're in the big blind. You've got to stick around with some mediocre hands.
Do you?
To catch the ace.
Do you?
That's a poker lesson for you, Jason.
I mean, if you're going to catch the ace,
if you're gonna,
yes.
yeah. If you're gonna try and win at least.
Right. Nice frickin' river.
Old Joe check-fold Stapleton over here. You actually recently offered a spot amongst some monks, weren't you, on account of your passivity at the poker table? They were impressed by your non-combatant style.
They learned from me.
John Juanda this time pairs his ace and will continue against the 10-3 of hearts, which Moad peeled pre-flop. Will peel again. 4 red cards. He'll need 5 for a flush. Picks up 3 additional outs. A deuce will make him a straight. John Juanda now with a flush draw of his own.
You know, Judge Dredd says, I am the law. I am the law at the poker table, but the law stands for loose and weak. You don't really hear much about that archetype, but that's me. Very loose, very weak.
Judge, jury, and check folder. Shout out to Milan Soccer in the chat who says Spaggy is the worst player on Twitch. Whew, wouldn't want to be that guy.
I do not want to be Spaggy.
No, you don't have what I want. Ah, yes.
23,000 chips called again, and all of a sudden we have a bit of a pot here. Moad won't be happy to see a brick 6 river. He's out of position with 10 high.
Juanda's all right with it. Chris Martin, your friend, says, Stapes, any idea how Kevin Hart is doing? Yeah, he's one of the top entertainers in the world. He's doing fine. He's a very rich man. He is.
Juanda looking for the 3 straights. Can't get it from the 10 high, but he will ship another pot.
One more level. But good news for you, John. You're off the feature table. New feature table coming up soon. Who's it going to be?
There's break every.
Who do you guys
every
think?
Level. Every level.
We'll
Also,
be
it's
at
not 1 hour level.
our new
Hour
table.
and a half.
Hour and a half. Oh, okay, thanks.
We'll tell you very soon.
That makes sense. now.
You felt like long hours to you all day?
No, I actually have been
Yeah, you've been.
glued to the apps.
Yeah, yeah.
Actions folded to
I didn't
Chen
play
Lin.
Yesterday, I just bought in today.
Yeah.
Oh, sick brag, Jawanda.
Too lazy.
Good session on the app, though.
Ooh, here we go.
Sure, that's way more exciting than
The
this,
American Airlines, the Aces, the Bullets, the Rockets. On the button. In the EPT, day 2. Doesn't get better than that, Joe Stapleton. That's a poker player's dream right there. You can see the joy wash across Murdov's face. Lin with the ace-8 of clubs, but cut off versus button. Going to see some aggressive re-raises here.
Knowing only what Lin knows at the table, it looks like he's calling. Question really doesn't matter anymore now that he calls. I was too slow. I was
Knowing what
gonna
he
say-
knows, should he fold?
Yeah, and then knowing, like, let's say he's got all the information from the stream.
If
Does
he
that
has
change
information from the stream, he'd see that his opponent has aces. He should fold.
No, I mean the previous hands.
Oh, the previous hands.
Yes.
Well, Murdov's mixed it up a little bit. He has mixed it up with some calls. The queen-8 off on the button. We haven't seen much in the way of re-raising.
We haven't seen a lot of aggression.
Ace-8 of clubs is kind of close. You could make an argument for it.
Well, we've got the case ace on this flop, which is not good news for Chen Lin.
Yeah.
A quick check on the flop to a 3 of diamonds turn. Lin, I like his check again because a lot of the time your opponent is going to have hands like jacks and queens and kings, which you know you want to try and get value from. You also maybe want to start inducing some bluffs on the turn. And ace-8, you don't necessarily want to go turn and river because there are still going to be some better aces that check flop. Especially if they are like ace, queen, ace, king of spades, which might trap here occasionally. And of course, pocket aces. Very unlikely, but possible. Lin pot controlling again, and now faces a bet at the river.
If you make your straight, you might not win actually. You make your flush, you win.
Super grim spot for him now because
Lin
he's
calls.
going to have to make the call. But does Murdov really bet a couple of times with jacks, queens, and kings? Probably not with the ace out there. And if
No,
he
I
has a
had
hand
a-
like king-queen, maybe he just c-bets flop, right?
I have the ace and the backdoor flush draw.
But it's very hard to
Tough.
reach a table. It's
What
going
I
to be a
said.
good level.
But I was more excited about Danny Tang. Are you not entertained?
Almost 2,000 inches.
Almost 2,000.
Yikes.
The biggest.
I don't want to be that guy. I
2
don't wanna
minutes
rain on
left
your
on the
parade.
level.
It might be a good. It might be a good job. There's 2 minutes left on the level.
One re-entry, yeah.
You guys remember when nobody knew who Isildur was and it was rumored that it could have been Phil Hellmuth? Remember that? You guys remember that?
Can you imagine the rage online if it was actually Helmuth? And he just comes out and he's like, heads up, no limit, world class. Online poker, world class. I'd love for it to have been Helmuth. Good times in online poker though.
Yeah.
Isildur
Oh,
running
man.
riot against Tom Dwan. The glory days. The dream.
Going on break in 1 minute. Coming up in the break, relive action
Yep.
from the 2009 Barcelona main event final table. Relive action. Shoot. I read it, but I didn't ingest it.
2009 main event, final table, relive the action from it, coming up on break. Break
I think
content.
that might have been Kent Lundmark's year. Kent Lundmark. All right, what's happening in this hand? This could be the last hand of the level, kids.
We got a raise from Murdov with the queen and the jack in the cutoff. We've got a 3-bet from the button with 4-3 offsuit, which is definitely not a hand most people would have chosen to re-raise with here. But Moad plays by his own rulebook, a poker rulebook, with apparently very few rules in it. And Chris Moorman sits behind him with a very decent-looking ace-queen of diamonds, but just 22 big blinds. He's going to let it go. And I guess if 4-3 offsuit is able to fold out ace queen of diamonds behind it, then he might be onto something. Queen jack offsuit looks like it's headed into the muck as well.
Yeah. No, down beat the break.
I think definitely the ace queen suited fold. Considerate of the proximity to the min cash, to the bubble. And Moad gets it done with 4-3 offsuit.
So, A, I will be surprised. B, there is every chance that we start to play into level 16. I imagine we will aim to get down into the money at least before concluding day 2 here at EPT Barcelona. Blinds are now 2,000, 4,000 with a 4,000 big blind ante. And already we see 2 big hands potentially collide. The aces of Almadin Imserovic and the 7s of Hao Zheng Wang, who was on our feature table earlier on.
It's a private club, Wang, so don't tell me you have 7s.
10 deuce deuce flop.
This is this board texture where both players usually don't have a piece. Both players should think they have the best hand.
Now, Imserovic has come to this table with more than 880k. He's got 220 big blinds.
Yeah, generally when you have 220 big blinds, you want to be like just raising a lot and putting a lot of pressure. He actually took the more passive line of aces, trying to trap his opponents. Goes check, check here.
How can we let this guy use his screen name? I'm Surovic. Come on.
By the way, we do believe that he is the chip leader right now.
I'm Chip Leaderovich.
This year's PCA, he won a 10K side event for $160,000.
So snap call here.
And he wins a pot off Wang.
It's a pretty big pot. Oh, nice size.
Such an amazing hand.
First hand, just aces.
Yeah.
Mine, right?
You open almost 100%.
So after that first hand back from break,
What'd you have?